Is it improper to be wearing a hat indoors while filming a video? I don't know. I don't really care. Hey guys, so today is November 15th, 2017, and that means that we are halfway through NaNoWriMo. Today I'm going to share a few of my tips on how to finish NaNoWriMo on time and get the 50,000 words out. For those of you that don't know, NaNoWriMo is an organization. It stands for National Novel Writing Month. It was founded in 1999, I believe, and still going strong. So if you guys go to nanowrimo.org, you can learn more about that. But basically what it is it's just a community online. Every November you sign up, you declare your novel, so you basically give it a name, and then once November 1st hits, you begin writing, and you can join a region, which is like your local community, and most places have local write-ins, and you can go meet other writers, go to coffee shops and write with new people. And the goal of NaNoWriMo is to write 50,000 words in 30 days, which is just over 1,600 words a day. So just a quick disclaimer, these are just my own tips and what I use to finish NaNoWriMo. And they might not work for everyone, especially since everybody's writing style is very different and everybody's gonna have different goals for the month of November. I myself am writing young adult fantasy, and you know, the process you go about writing that is not necessarily the same process you would go about in writing a book of short stories. So it's gonna be different for everyone, but this is what I do to get through NaNoWriMo and finish. Okay, so I've just opened up Safari, and I'm gonna go to NaNoWriMo and show you guys a little bit of the website in case you aren't familiar with it yet. And you know, it's kind of late to start now, but any of you that are not doing NaNoWriMo and are striving authors, you should definitely sign up next year and give it a shot because it is a ton of fun. So here's the dashboard. It's day 15. We should be halfway there today, which would be 25,000 words. As you can see, I'm only at 22,558. So I have about 2,500 words to write today. I think that's very doable. I can easily write 3,000 in a day, no problem. And I have fallen a little bit behind in the last few days. So here's today, 25,000. Here's my novel cover. You don't have to have a novel cover, but I do prefer having one. Just, it kind of helps me, it's inspiring. I like seeing it on my dashboard. If I go and look at all of my past novels, I like being able to differentiate between each year by having a visual. And then here's the title of my novel. It's The Chains of Rowan. It's my second book in a series I'm writing. And I started at the very beginning this month, and you know, I'm about 5 chapters in now. So these orange bars here are badges. They're the days I earned badges while writing, and your badges are down below here. So those orange badges are writing badges that you get throughout the month. Like this one is for updating your word count on the first day. I got this badge for updating my word count 5 days in a row, 10 days in a row. I'll get this one when I update 30 days in a row, which would be the entire month. I hit 1667, which is the first mark. It's the first day. I hit 5,000. I hit 10,000. I should be getting this one today if I stay on track. And then you've got 40,000, finishing your novel, and making a promise to revise your written novel at the end of the month. There's also participation badges, which are just like filling out your bio, adding to the forums, donating to the organization, things like that. And then personal achievement badges are ones that you pick for yourself, and they just depend on what kind of writer you are. So for instance, I have a planner badge because I plan ahead. I don't just kind of go into the month without knowing what I'm doing. Old school Rimo, I declared myself old school because I'm starting a brand new novel in November. The flip side of that would be if you were to continue writing something you've already started. And Camper, because I participate in Camp NaNoWriMo, which are different months of the year, and it has a different website, but it's the same kind of idea. You just get to pick your goal, and it's a little bit more flexible, and so on and so forth. So this isn't the actual stats page, which is actually over here. On this page, it's a little bit more broken down. So my average per day this month has been 1503, and at that rate I'll finish on December 4th. You know, if I get caught up today, which I should, it'll be back to November 30th, hopefully. And then there's your, and then here are those same stats again, just without the orange marks. As you can see, I had a pretty shaky start to the beginning of the month, but things are going pretty swimmingly now. And then down here, you have your region stats, which my region is Grand Junction, Colorado, since that's where I'm from. And so far, Grand Junction's written just over 1.2 million words, which is awesome. Okay, so now that you have kind of an idea about what NaNoWriMo looks like, the website, the goals, the tracking, and all that, I just want to give you guys a few tips on how to finish on time, because I've been participating in NaNoWriMo since 2012, and 2012 was actually the only year I've won. Finishing NaNoWriMo isn't really about the bragging rights or like the goodies you get at the end of the month, because you do get kind of like offers from the sponsors of NaNoWriMo. It's more about just how it changes you, and it definitely changed my mindset when it comes to writing. This is kind of for those people that struggle with getting that first chapter out, with shutting up their inner critic, and just constantly kind of despairing and sabotaging themselves because they hate everything they write. They nitpick as they go, and that slows them down. When you're doing that to yourself, you'll never really finish a novel, and there's not any point in nitpicking your work as you go, because in the end, you're just going to go back and nitpick some more, and half of that stuff you wrote is going to get discarded and thrown away. NaNoWriMo is more about getting the words onto the paper, letting your creativity flow, and not worrying about how good it is and comparing yourself to published authors. You're not going to be able to write a publishable book in 30 days, chances are. I mean, maybe you can, but probably not. So you don't need to worry about it being perfect. You just need to worry about getting your characters and getting your story onto the paper. Think of it as like a really, really fleshed out outline. One of my biggest tips for NaNoWriMo is honestly just to write something you know you're going to be interested in. And you don't necessarily have to know exactly what it is you're going to be writing. I do like to plan ahead, but that doesn't mean I overplan. When I outline a novel, I don't like to get too specific, because I find if I do that, I end up with weird plot holes because I'm trying to follow the outline too closely. It doesn't quite flow as well as it should. So I kind of have developed my own way of outlining, and I use it all year round, including for NaNoWriMo. Okay, so back over to the computer. I write on Scrivener, which is an actual writing software, and I got it at 40% off for completing NaNoWriMo in 2012. So I'm actually just gonna, I'm not gonna open the one I'm working on now. I'm gonna open The Stone Door, which is the first book in my series, to give you an idea of how I do things. Okay, so this isn't actually a completed outline, because this book was already previously written. When I rewrote it, I didn't rewrite the entire outline, but if we just look at the beginning, it'll give you an idea of exactly how I outline and how I keep things flowing. Okay, here we go. So if we go to part 1, it just says introduce the setting and Juniper. The story starts out in Boston with Juniper looking out at it from her bedroom. Describe the neighborhood, Juniper, and the weather in great detail. Make sure the readers know what she looks like before they have a chance to really develop an incorrect image in their head. She's only distracted when her father calls to tell her that she might notice the smell of his burning cake. Okay, so that's probably about as detailed as I ever get. When it's the beginning of a book, I have to really, really remind myself that the characters don't the people reading don't know the characters. I need to remember to describe them. I need to remember to describe the setting. I need to remember to properly introduce everyone and make sure that there's a hook and it pulls people in, but that they're not confused, like they were just thrust into this situation that they don't know anything about. So not only in my outlines do I kind of describe what's happening, but I add little reminders to myself about things I can't forget. So another thing I do is this says part 1 over here. And we have a lot of introductions in this part. Introduce Stephen Holt, introduce Brad and Jake, because it is the beginning of the story and there are a lot of characters coming in. But this whole section isn't just chapter 1. I do it in big chunks of sections where it's almost like when you're reading a book and it's divided into parts and chapters. That's how I divide my outline, is into parts, because sometimes if I divide it into chapters, I get to the end of the chapter outline and find that that's not really a good stopping place for the chapter, or I'll get halfway through it and realize, oh, this chapter is really lengthy and this is a good stopping point, I should probably stop it here. And then I end up breaking up the outline later on just to keep it consistent, and then it gets kind of messy and there's a lot of like, chapter 14.5 because I don't want to go through and change all the chapter titles in my outline. And it's just my way of staying organized. I just do parts, and then when I'm writing, I just find the perfect stopping point, I stop there, I go on to the next chapter, because you can just feel it when you're writing. And that's really the gist of my outlining. That kind of nails it right there, is I leave everything open. I have a broad idea, a flowing thought of what I want to happen in the story. I leave little reminders for myself, I make notes of little things, sometimes there's even some quotes if I have a specific idea about something, but for the most part I leave it pretty hollow, because when I write, I tend to just fill in the blanks as I go. And that would be my other big tip, is just kind of make it up as you go. Any big world building or plot structure, anything like that, you should find the time to do that before NaNoWriMo, but once Nano starts, just go with the flow. You won't really know exactly what you want to happen until it's happening. You'll realize, oh, this character would say something like this in this situation, and you might not have thought of that before because you weren't in the heart of the characters before. You weren't writing from the characters' points of view or writing about the characters, so you couldn't get a perfect feel for how that character might react to something. But when you're writing it, it's like getting to know a person, and you get to know those characters as you write about them, and things change and suddenly you realize, oh, this character probably wouldn't say that or do that. Instead, they might do this. And you don't want to limit yourself to an outline. You want to have the freedom to do that with your characters and write in the moment and know them well enough that you feel confident that that is how they would react, and that's what should happen in the story. It's kind of like this video because, if we're being honest, I am completely making this up as I go along. And that's why it's becoming so long. And this all kind of just brings me back to the biggest tip of all. The way to really finish NaNoWriMo is to shut up your inner critic. And that's the same year-round. If you're writing a novel, this is what I said earlier, can't be worried about every single word you're writing and if it's perfect, because you'll come back to it later in the editing process. And, if you're really serious about it, probably an actual editor will get to it later, and they'll fix any issues that there are, and they'll help you. So you don't need to worry about that. You need to worry about the story. And if you're editing as you go, it just messes with the flow, and you just doubt yourself even more, and you just need to shut that voice up. If you get to a point and you're so worried about every word that you're writing down, it might just be the scene. Maybe you're not ready for that yet. Maybe you haven't thought about it enough. Maybe it's just not flowing, and so you're getting kind of stilted. Just stop. I'll show you an example of this. So now I'm going to actually open up this month's current project and show you an example of this. So over here, Chapter 3. As you can see, Chapter 2 is about 5,000 words long. Chapter 1 is about 6,000 words long. I generally like to average about 4,500 to 6,000 words per chapter. That's what's comfortable for me. That's my writing style. Not everybody is the same. If you look at James Patterson or Stephen King, they both have really, really short chapters in most of their books. It's just a different style. But generally in these young adult fantasy books, the chapters are a little bit lengthier. 5,000 to 6,000 words isn't super long, but it's substantial. So, if you go to Chapter 3, you can see I only wrote a little bit over 2,000 words, and I said extend this chapter because I got to the end of this chapter and realized quickly that it was missing a lot, and I didn't know exactly what it was missing, and I didn't want to waste time worrying about it, so I just said extend this chapter, and I moved on to Chapter 4. And years ago, you know, in 2011, before I finished NaNoWriMo in 2012, I would have worried over that chapter for so long and spent so much time trying to add things to lengthen it because I knew it needed to end there, but it was so short that I knew I could have fleshed it out more, and I would have just wasted so much time trying to get that chapter to like 4,000 words, and that's something that will hang you up on NaNoWriMo. You need to just power through, write a note to yourself, and come back to it in the editing process. Also, honestly, if you're struggling with a part like that and you can't think of what to do, you'll find if you just press past it, work on the rest of the book, and when you come back in the editing phase, you'll suddenly know what to write. And that's not always true, but that's what I tend to find happens is my brain is just kind of muddled. I'm too worried thinking about it. If I move on and come back later, it'll be with a clearer mind. And also, you will have written another probably 40 or 50,000 words of those characters. You've gotten to know them better, and you'll go, aha, this is exactly what this scene needs. You can add a little bit of foreshadowing because you already know what's going to happen in the future. And it's just really helpful to come back to it later and just edit it and not worry about it when you're actually in the writing process. And another thing that hangs people up in NaNoWriMo is they miss a day or 2 days or even 3, and they fall, 3,000 to 4,000 words behind, and so they just stop writing. You can't do that. I like to catch up pretty much all in 1 or 2 days, so I'll just write 3,000 or 4,000 words in a day. But another way of doing it is just taking those words and dividing them. And NaNoWriMo will kind of do that for you. It'll say, in order to finish on time, you need to now write this many words per day. So, to sum this whole thing up, the things that will really stop you during NaNoWriMo is your inner critic and self-doubt. And both of those things go really hand in hand. And if you can just push that aside, ignore that, go into NaNoWriMo feeling confident and just letting your ideas and your creativity free flow, you'll do just fine. 50,000 words is not that hard. It's less than 2 hours a day, depending on how quickly you can write, but definitely no more than like 2 or 3. So you can find the time every day to do it. And even if you don't finish, even if you only write 40,000 words or 10,000 words, that's still more words than you would have written if you hadn't done it at all and you doubted yourself and you let your inner critic take over. And these are just tips to use not only during NaNoWriMo, but anytime you're writing a novel, and it has completely changed the way I write. And even if you come out at the end of NaNoWriMo hating what you wrote, that's fine, because I guarantee you if you wrote 50,000 words and you decide you don't like them, you still grew as a writer, you still gained skills, you still learned about yourself and the way you work and the way you think and the best way to novel for you. That is more important than having 5,000 perfectly written words that you're never going to pick up again because they took you so long to write that by this point you just hate them. So be confident in yourself going into NaNoWriMo, and for those of you doing it this year, I hope this helped and gives you a little bit of motivation to keep going. For those of you not doing it but are aspiring authors, I definitely recommend trying it next year. And you know, Camp NaNoWriMo will be coming up in summer, or I guess late spring. The first one is either in April or May, but if you just go to campnanowrimo.org, you can find out more about that. I highly recommend NaNoWriMo. It's a great organization, and it has completely changed the way I go about noveling and writing, and it's made me love it more than I ever thought I could. So good luck, everyone, and I'll see you later. Bye.